Good to see everyone. Guys, you know the drill by now. If this is your first time, you'll see there's a Q&A button at the bottom and a chat button as well. So if any point you've got a question during this webinar, just stick it in one of them and we will try and get it answered if there's enough time. And as always, Steve starts by introducing the guests. So, Steve, how do you know Jamie?
We were chatting actually before everyone jumped on. I've known Jamie for many years, and my memory, and it's probably Jamie's as well, is me getting an idea in my head that I wanted to be a tutor for the FA. I'd been on my UEFA B, and I came away thinking, that's what I want to do. So the first approach I made to Jamie was, there's no demand at the moment, but you know what I'm like, I'm a dog with a bone, so I just didn't leave him alone. And I think I bought him a few coffees, and in the end, I think he just gave me an opportunity just to get rid of me, to be honest. I've got Jamie to thank for kind of what I'm doing now and the coach education, coach development stuff. I must also say that Jamie was the first person I asked to be a guest on this webinar series. And when he said, yeah, I'll do it, it gave me the confidence to reach out to others, to be honest. So Jamie's probably the reason why we're here tonight and why we've been having some good Monday, Thursday and Saturdays together. So yeah, Jamie, like myself, is from Norfolk. I think he's got a broader Norfolk accent than me. And like I said, we've known each other for a long time. Jamie, are you happy to, well, first of all, thanks for coming on and welcome. Are you happy to give us a bit of a whistle-stop tour as to how you got to the role you're in now?
Yeah, sure, Steve. So evening, everybody. Great to be with you for the night, for the hour, and hopefully give you just a little bit of an overview, really, of, I guess, yeah, my journey to what I'm doing now, and hopefully pick one or two subjects of interest to share with you around what UEFA and FIFA are doing specifically to support Grassroots. So I'll just share the screen and hopefully can work from it through a few slides. But as Steve has said, obviously it'd be really great to keep it active and engaging with plenty of questions. And anything I can answer, obviously happy to as we go along the way. But just in terms of, I guess, my pathway, my journey, I guess the intro probably didn't say a great deal in terms of what I'm doing or what I've done before. But I've been very fortunate now that, I guess, like a lot of people, I spent all of my time working within a football environment. I joined Norwich City back in 1991 when they first started out with football in the community programs. And that was the first time that Norwich had one. And that was after realising a few years before that I was never going to be a player. I was really fortunate that coach at the football club then, Sammy Morgan, really was my unofficial mentor at the time and encouraged me to consider coaching. I used to go along and help free of charge with the Centres of Excellence and work, with a lot of lads who ironically probably came from the Bristol area, for those local. I see Webby on the call, he'll remember some of those names and faces as well. And I was just the runner to set the pace when I was fit and young and just 2 or 3 years above them and taking them around the pitch before we started the work, as you did those days. But yeah, got introduced to coaching at a young age. I guess managed to get my A license then by the time I was 24. Wow. And effectively worked my way through as running the football in the community program and spent 10 years developing that into a small business, really serving the community of Norfolk and promoting the football club. At that point, I was probably knocking hard on the door, as Steve said, trying to influence others at the FA to get more involved on a bigger basis. Wanted to become a tutor, thought I could add some value to what the FA were doing. And eventually they decided it was easier to have me working for them and keep questioning what they were doing. So I joined them in 2001 as a regional manager for general sort of football development. And then in 2005 became the first sort of head of the tutor workforce, where my job was to really professionalize and I guess revitalize the coach educator and the wider educator workforce. So it's referees, medics, coaches, safeguarding children at the time. Anybody who wore an FA hat and delivered education, it was my job to really upskill and modernize the workforce. Spent a few years doing that, and then eventually managed to take on the role of head of FA Learning. So responsible, I guess, for all the education and development and courses that the FA delivered. Not as the content creator, but managing process, managing teams of staff to deliver the content, and obviously really being fortunate to work with some great coach educators over those years. And then eventually moved and transitioned FA Learning from Wembley to St George's Park, and spent 4 years there, really sort of developing again that business effectively, and making sure that when SGP opened, it really was fit for purpose with the right content, the right courses, and things like the FA Licensed Coaches Club, really serving grassroots and elite coaches all the way through the game. Unfortunately, as a part of a restructure there in 2015, I guess like a few recently, it got to a stage where I had my opinions on how things should be done, and actually thought it's probably best to take the opportunity to explore pastures new. And I was fortunate at that time, really straight away in 2015, moved straight into work with UEFA and FIFA as a consultant. And over the last 5 years, I guess I've effectively sort of really grown my work with them, and now spend all of my time working across the two organisations in various roles. For UEFA, I guess I really sort of position myself as somebody working, they call it a grassroots expert. I think that just means you're getting old. But someone working in grassroots, supporting football in schools, coach ed and club development. And then with FIFA, again, a similar first introduction as a grassroots coach educator. But then before, sort of, we're leading on a project around football for schools. And then more recently, for the last 12 months, also juggling the work with the technical leadership team, supporting technical directors effectively around the world as a mentor. And also now, over the next 12 months, basically sort of building a brand new coaching qualification, a brand new technical director qualification for technical directors all around the world. So the future looks bright in terms of future work, and really work that I've got a passion for, sort of moving ahead. But I've been fortunate, as I say, 30 years all told, still doing a job that I love, and still being able to influence and impact work now at a European and worldwide level. So apologies for the big introduction, but hopefully just giving you a flavour of what I've done and certainly what I'm doing now.
No, don't apologise, Jamie. It's great. One observation stroke question, I guess, that you said you got your A license at 24, which is very young. Did you, or no, I'll rephrase. At which point did you sort of see yourself less on the grass and more kind of in the management side of things? Because in effect, that's what you've gone on to do, haven't you? You spent probably as much time in a suit as you have in a tracksuit.
Absolutely, yeah. And as we said, almost the higher up you got, the further away from the grass you got. And that's probably been the last 5 years have rejuvenated all that passion I had for actually still getting on the grass, albeit at a grassroots level with the coach educators. But certainly, once I got my A license, then at the young age, at that stage, it automatically enabled you almost to become a coach educator of what was then the FA prelim, and then obviously it became the new generation of courses in '98. But that enabled me to really, I suppose, discover the love of coach education and the role of a coach educator. And then eventually, obviously, that took me through to the role of managing the workforce. But I guess that was where I probably felt really most comfortable. And the one thing I've missed, though, is probably ever really working with a team on a regular basis, because the job never allowed it. But ironically, so I've ended up, coaching the coaches. But probably I would say it's more around a delivery model rather than a game-specific expert or knowledge-specific expert of the game.
Interesting. Thanks, Jamie. I think you're going to present on a few projects tonight, aren't you?
Yeah, so I thought I'd just give a quick overview, really. I mean, I'm just going to give an overview of the brand new UEFA C course that we're responsible at UEFA for now, supporting all 55 members to roll out over the next 3 years. And then I'll just touch on the UEFA Football for Schools programme, which is a large €11 million investment across UEFA, and then finish with a bit of a film show, just the heads up really of the FIFA Football for Schools app, which again will also be launched later on this year.
Thanks, great.
So So 3 chunks of content, but I think we'll sort of take a break between each one and obviously have a chance for any questions.
Классный тренер прививает любовь к футболу и является примером.
We've won trophies together and improved my skills and other abilities.
Я люблю своего тренера, потому что он понимает мои ошибки, не критикует, и он очень добрый.
In youth and grassroots football, players' development, fun environment, safer mind is much more important than results.
Hello.
From a grassroots perspective, it's really about trying to encourage the coach to find the level that they really enjoy coaching at and then stick with that area and specialise in it.
For children, it's very important that you learn them how to develop a certain technique, about how to shoot, about how to pass, how to dribble, because it's not about the results, it's about the process that leads to development of players.
Важно понять то, что хочет каждый ребенок, его желания, его потребности. Так как дети очень любят играть в футбол, то есть в своих тренировках необходимо давать больше игровых упражнений.
We would encourage our coaches to ask players, get them as making decisions. What would you do in this scenario? And creating that environment where the players are given a little bit of responsibility on their own decisions and how they think they should do things.
Which is called what? Houchen. Okay, good.
Now we understand, coaches understand the center of every single training session is a player, and every coach must create training session according to a player's needs.
I've learned good planning, organisation and structure, but also how important it is to have fun. So you have to make every exercise from all.
It's really about creating a fun, safe, inclusive culture. 99% of these young children aren't going to go on to play at the elite level, so let's make sure that they have a lifelong love of the game.
The coaches, having attended our courses, will go away with some really important messages. Firstly is how they create that positive learning environment for the players. And we're really helping the coaches to look at modifying sessions to meet the needs of individual players. And we know that if we can get all that together, that more players will enjoy more sessions and learning will take place and development will take place. So you'll hear straight away that the messages that UEFA have been promoting for the last 12 months and now is very much part of the new programme are very much underpinned by a lot of the FA philosophy and the work that's gone on in the FA over the last 10 years. Even longer in introducing the FA Youth Award principles and how we've divided up the way in which we teach the game. So I guess for everybody on the call, the first thing I'd say is, without doubt, the English content has influenced heavily the new content of the UEFA C diploma that all 55 countries will have now signed up to delivering and starting over the next 2 years as part of the UEFA Coaching Convention. I've just shared with you there the new UEFA pathway. It might surprise you to hear that the UEFA C license to what was our level 2, the FA level 2 is now the UEFA C, that equivalent level. And for the first time ever, it's now included as part of the UEFA Coaching Convention, which ultimately means that every member of UEFA, so all 55 countries, have signed up to deliver that to grassroots football with a minimum of 60 hours and above, obviously aimed at specifically grassroots football. And below that, as part of the UEFA Grassroots Charter, which again I'll touch on later, every one of the 55 countries now has an introductory course that obviously engages grassroots into the coaching pathway. So something I guess that we've taken for granted really for 20 years. Whilst it's been delivered in different formats across different countries, this is the first time it's really been standardized by UEFA, and a massive commitment to actually increase the quality of grassroots coach education across all 55 countries. But I'm sure it's always good for everyone on the call to hear that England, despite what we sometimes think, at grassroots, we've actually been leading the way in terms of content and courses for a number of years. And this is, as I said, really is the bedrock of the UEFA policy moving forwards.
Jamie, can I ask?
So UEFA,
can I ask?
Yeah,
sorry, before Is there a launch date, or will that differ in different countries? Or
yeah, no. So it started officially. The convention started at the end of last year, and we've then worked as part of a support program to all 55 countries to introduce them over a 4-day webinar. But they now have effectively until 2023 to actually have the new C license actually up and running in their country. So there is a transition period going from an old national course to the new UEFA C.
Cool.
But in reality, most of them will be up and running, I'm sure, by certainly 2022. And I would say that probably half of them will be up and running by the end of this year, given the meetings that we've had so far.
Thank you. Just comment there. I think I saw it flash up. Libby, Wales and Scotland have started UEFA C already. Is that right, Jamie?
Not officially, they haven't.
Oh,
no.
all right. Sorry, whoever said
yeah,
that.
They call. I know Scotland were advertising that it is. I mean, it's been a bit of a grey area, to be fair, and I think UEFA weren't specifically robust on what people called the grassroots courses last year, for instance. So people were calling it as part of the UEFA grassroots program, and by default, it almost became a UEFA C. But officially, no NA has gone through the official approval process yet and been signed off against the new 4-pillar delivery model that we've asked them to put forward. So I'm actually working closely with these countries to help them go through the approval process. But anybody who was awarded it previously, it won't get taken away in case there's anyone on the call worrying.
Yeah,
it's just been part of a part of a process, and some of them have been very quick to re-advertise it and get the numbers and get the first.
Thanks, Jamie.
But yeah, essentially, so UEFA have it's a 3-pronged attack. No surprise, I guess the core football development subjects: so coach education, club development of football in schools. So football in schools we launched last year. That is up and running and funding is going out. Coach Ed's now been, as we say, really revolutionised, and club development will be the final part of the jigsaw that will kick in at the end of this year from UEFA with a large support programme. But no surprise there, better education, better experience, better environment gives us a chance to grow the game and retain more players. So UEFA's mantra, and obviously UEFA have a responsibility. Whilst they don't have and deliver their own qualifications, the convention ultimately mandates countries to deliver against a certain curriculum and to minimum standards. And obviously UEFA then endorse those and enable their logo to be on it. But obviously it's all about better players, better coaches, and trying to improve that overall quality of the game. And ultimately it is grassroots, so it is very much everybody everywhere, and the players of all ages and abilities, and really starting to improve the type of environment that football is played within. So again, similar messages that we are through charter standards. I've been fortunate to have had that experience probably in this country for the last 20 years. But believe you me, as I've got to know the 55 member countries better, what's on offer is very random. Some will focus heavily on grassroots. Some will have no focus at all and just really look to support talent pathways or elite pathways. So there are challenges across Europe to really raise the standard across grassroots and make sure that everybody has that opportunity, despite any challenges they may have to take part. So what does the course look like? And again, those of you who have been through the Youth Awards will be laughing and say, well, we've been doing that for ages. But it is about the 4 pillars of the coach, the environment, the player, and the game. So we, just dividing it up into what we know works. And that's where UEFA have then built a brand new curriculum builder where we've sort of outlined a competency-based approach in each of these 4 areas. So just to give you a bit of a visual, very much obviously about affecting how a coach works with values and beliefs, shaping and building the environment, understanding those individual needs of players and team, but within the grassroots context, and then your value of using training and game to obviously deliver the grassroots element of our courses. But again, I think this is for the first time giving UEFA a clear structure to say that these are the 4 pillars of the areas that we really want you to channel your content against. And it won't be a surprise to hear that the biggest challenge for many countries now is how they develop the environment. They've traditionally been okay at developing the technical aspect of the game and the physical, but actually thinking about the environment in which players play and learn is something that's very much brand new to many of them.
Are we ahead of the game in that respect then, Jamie, as a nation?
Yeah, massively.
Yeah.
And I still, say I've been around long enough to know what the other countries have been doing for a while. And without doubt, the FA Youth Awards and what was the Mod 1, Mod 2 courses, they were not to be seen anywhere else in Europe or the world when we launched them. There's, I'll talk about Belgium in a little while, but all these other countries have really looked at what we've did and gone age specific as a result of us introducing those youth awards back in 2010, 2011. So, some really good come out of that. So it is a cultural change. As you say, it's not so much maybe within the UK, but it is very much now about encouraging coaches to think about values and behaviours, and no longer just focusing on those traditional areas of technical, tactical and physical. So it's been very interesting to see how certainly Eastern European countries are now embracing that and quickly seeing the difference. You saw there on the video, there was some work there we've done over 18 months in Belarus as part of a pilot before they held the UEFA Grassroots conference last year. And over a 20-month period, we really introduced the grassroots coach education pathway for the first time, having been told that nobody would ever see a value in it or want to go on it. And now they have a waiting list of about 300 coaches wanting to get on the UEFA C. Right. They've delivered, I think over 700 sort of coaches through the leaders course. But, having established a culture that actually they're introducing children to the game in a completely different way than ever before. So it's just great seeing how it can go from being almost a state institution and state courses to very much just telling players what to do, just suddenly, turning a light on in the grassroots game and making an enjoyable experience for kids of all abilities.
So, Jamie, did you find yourself, not just yourself, but you and your colleagues, do you find you having to be salespeople then? Like, this works, and yet you're going to different cultures. And did you ever get to the stage where you thought, actually, is it right that we're actually going against their culture or challenging them? Did you find that difficult?
No, I think we believed so strongly in what we were doing, and we knew that it would work, because we've been through it all here, that it was a no-brainer. Yeah. You only had to observe what was happening in these countries to think that we could improve the culture and change the culture. But absolutely, it took the first 2 or 3 courses and that word of mouth for people to realise that there was a better way to do things and a more modern way to do things.
Right.
Even just the learning environment within the classroom, just little things, it just suddenly made such a difference. So looking through, grassroots coaching, again, conscious that, when I'm talking to an English audience, you're going to say, well, there's nothing new here. But I guess what I'm trying to do is reinforce to you that actually what we do in England is good. And actually, what we're trying to create in England still remains good, however that might be delivered. I think the underlying principles work. So we're trying to develop coaches who can obviously deal with the whole grassroots game. And as we know, that's a challenge in itself, given the range of abilities, ages and stages that you have to support players through, and ultimately trying to get young children to stay in the game as long as possible, whether it be as a player, a coach, a volunteer, but really, and support them from cradle to grave in terms of their involvement in the game. So we've talked about developing philosophies and values, plan, do, review models, and really starting to try and introduce the art of coaching through a range of teacher methodology. They're looking at the intervention styles, the coaching methods, the coaching styles, etc. But just opening the eyes, really, making sure people see it as an art rather than just something that's a show and tell.
Right.
So again, statements here that you'll be familiar with, but the importance for grassroots coaches to build connections, focus on the person, not the player necessarily. That opportunity to be more self-aware, the child-centered approach, the player-centered approach, that balance of competition versus development, and understanding also at a grassroots level the importance of engaging and educating parents. And again, that's still probably the biggest common challenge as you go around Europe. Surprise, surprise. How do we engage parents? Everybody wants to know what are the parent modules that you can create on a course to improve that environment, to include them more, etc. So that's still, I think, the holy grail for many. How do we engage parents better and develop the environments for players? I'd be interested again in your thoughts and any comments on here of people who've done that successfully.
I know I was one of 6 to go to America a couple of years ago for the US convention, and that was one of the biggest talking points in the US, was how to engage and educate parents. They have all manner of problems over there, I think.
Yeah, and still trying. And as much as we all thought online works and this works, it's still a weekly battle. I think it always will be, won't it? There's so much you can do, but parents are always going to be a challenge until we get the next generation of players and coaches. I think that for me as well will start to happen, where you've got these kids who are coming through charter standard clubs. They understand it, they understand development a lot better, they understand how to behave better. So I think we're maybe one generation away now from maybe having our first young players that have come through charter standard environment as a player, as they now become coaches and adults and parents. So I think we're getting closer. So UEFA do have that responsibility of football for all. It's a genuine mantra, and again I think the pictures just highlight again the challenges of grassroots. But every time I guess we look at grassroots coaches, all it does is remind us of how big a challenge it is for anybody involved in the grassroots game, and the expertise that you have to have if you're going to support players of all these different levels and abilities and ages. So absolutely hats off continually to the work of grassroots coaches.
I love the picture of that young girl there. She's very proud, isn't she? The young girl on the left.
She's proud, yeah.
Look at that.
She's definitely a proud
picture.
Belarusian, yeah. Yeah. So when it comes to, I guess, again, the 4-corner approach within the model, again, you'll see it all here. It's very, very similar. I'm not going to dwell on it because it's more or less exactly as per Craig Simmons, Paul Holder, Pete Sturgis, the model that was introduced back in 2010. But this is very much now an underpinning sort of value of the new UEFA grassroots courses. And again, likewise there, you'll see, in terms of how we're trying to, develop the player, look at some of the challenges there. I guess a key thing for UEFA is about the motivation for players to practice and keep coming back. And really highlighting, especially some of the female approaches now around developing the environment and culture, whereas you're really setting that social scene before the football element, and recognising the best way to attract and retain young players. And still that difficult balance between the game being the teacher and the coach being the teacher, and that ongoing question around when do you intervene and when do you give a player help. But absolutely, all the conversations that you'll have had on your courses are still very much part of the live rhetoric, within the new UEFA course as we move forwards. It's interesting. I've been doing quite a lot of work with Belgium, in theory, obviously world #1 rated, and we look at the work they've done over the last 4 years. Same sort of messages, just maybe a different language. But I think the interesting one, I thought the reason I'd share it. I personally think that maybe we're getting a bit behind when we look at our formats. When you look at most of the other developing countries now, I think they've been a lot braver. And 2v2, 3v3 is a much more formal part of their player pathway in grassroots. And they're getting a lot of evidence of, the success from it. So I guess a challenge to anyone I speak to at the FA now, or just in English coaching, is, do you really think 4v4 fight, and there's not even often 4v4 everywhere in every county, let alone 3v3 and 2v2 happening every weekend within clubs. And Belgium and many other countries are now swearing by even smaller formats, and managing that in a way that just gives players more time on the ball, more appropriate challenges, and for them it's an absolutely key part of their player pathway now.
Are you an advocate of that then, Jamie? Sorry, are you an advocate of that yourself, or is it you've just seen that the Belgians have done it?
I've seen it, I've listened to it, I've watched it, and can certainly understand how it can work. It takes, I remember, the challenges when we went from 11v11 back to 6v6, and the protests at Lancaster Gate. And I know how hard it is to change our culture of what football looks like in England. But I think for sure, depending on what type of players we want to develop, more 2v2, 3v3, yes, we might be doing it and picking up a lot within our training now. Let's hope that's the case. But certainly in terms of that age group and playing formats at weekends still, a lot of countries really are now jumping on 2v2 and 3v3. So again, we can either wait 5 years and 10 years and then suddenly find we're behind the curve and say, oh, we should have done that earlier. Or certainly if I was at the FA, I'd be sort of saying, well, being a little bit more open-eyed and observing what's going on around Europe now. Because if not, I think they've caught up with us around age specific, and they're now at danger of going ahead because of some of the formats that are being offered within clubs.
I wonder, yeah, I mean, probably not for tonight. I wonder if we should go after the training model more than the match day experience. I just wonder if maybe that'll be a stepping stone. And part of the coach education is introducing 1v1s, 2v2s, 3v3s, with a view to maybe a few years down the line affecting the match day experience. I don't know. Being a dad of a 7-year-old who loves playing 7v7 and absolutely loves it, I would be against that. I think that's without my FA education hat on. It's with my parent hat on. So you'd have to change people's mindsets like I have. It's tough, isn't it? It's really tough.
Yeah. And we go back, Jamie mentions there about absolutely, it's just going back to street soccer. It's going back to as many flexible formats. However many kids turn up, you divide it into 2s and 3s and you set up a little round robin of games. It's not rocket science. It's not hard to manage. It's just having a hat on or a mindset on that actually gives far more flexible opportunities for kids to learn the game in. And I'm a big advocate of, having 3v2s and 2v3s and
yeah, absolutely.
Kids learn to play when they've got an overload or they are outnumbered. But just in short 3 and 6 minute games where it doesn't matter if they've lost the game by a few, they've suddenly learned how to try to address being a man short or a player short within a short game, or how to make the best of a spare player. But as we know, kids, the result for them is irrelevant, isn't it? It's this is a new challenge. Let's see how we approach it. Play it for a short period of time, and then revisit it. It's quite simple, isn't it?
Absolutely.
But for me, we're still far too rigid in our county structures and our league structures. So that's a challenge for everybody, I think, in England. So, and again, even things like the model in Belgium now is that if they've got these squads and they're playing 2v2s and 3v3s, you'll never find a substitute or odd numbered players waiting to play. There'll always be another little 1v1 or a mini skill challenge or other activity taking place on another part of the pitch or the ground. So, you'll no longer got substitutes. Or I think I said to you before we came on, without wanting to drop names, I was on a webinar with Roberto Martinez before Christmas. And he gave me this phrase that I've always used since, that there's no such thing as substitutes now in any of Belgian football. All they are is game changers. So you're no longer a substitute, you're a game changer, whether you're in an international team or whether you're a child coming onto a game in their own little battle. They're coming on as a game changer, not as a sub. And just that mentality of, boom, you're coming on there to make your impact within the game. So that was one little gem I picked up from him, but also say the inclusivity. So there's never a kid waiting. He's either assistant coach, he's managing this team, or he's playing and actively involved with kids from the other team in an organised area or an unorganised area. But they're just encouraged to go and play and not stand and watch the game. And I guess that was quite a strong message for me within Grassroots. And I know that will happen in some of our better leagues, but I know for sure that in some of our leagues it doesn't happen.
It's really strange, isn't it? We've delivering level 1s, level 2s the last few years, and we've sort of said to coaches, if you've got a 5v5 going on, you've got 2 subs per team, well, just set up a little pitch for them behind. And if they really weren't keen to do it, the coaches, I don't know what it is about that kind of lack of control over them, maybe. I don't know, or maybe it's them against us mentality. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and just to say, if you've got 3 or 4 subs on each team and they stand, and you just for the coach to say, "Go on, kids, you go off and have your own game," then just you see the light on their face straight away, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
The fact they can go and just do it and not have to sit there and get cold. But yeah, us adults like to be in control. So then, yeah, I'm just touching on obviously the environment. So all the elements really adhere to all around motivational climate, care and welfare of players and how they're organised. This is a great slide that we've used within the courses. Sorry, I'm flipping away. Actually, again from Claire Daniels at the FA, and it's something that's come from the FA Playmakers, but very much about how we develop that environment. And if we get it right at level 1, it enables level 3 to take place. But again, I think it's just a nice visual, which I thought I'd share, which really reminds us how we set that environment. And if we do level 1, level 2 can happen, and eventually level 3 will happen. But without level 1, level 2 and 3 won't happen at all. So feel free to steal it. So again, the game is just split down into 3 areas. So different ways in which we're organising training, understand the benefits of different training, the different playing formats, and then the match experience and match day behaviours. So that's of the coach, and it's of the players, and it's of expectations. But again, all those sensible, I guess, headlines that you'd expect to see, given the way that we've developed our grassroots coaching courses here. But again, I just thought it's always interesting to compare with, for instance, what Belgium are doing as world leaders. But you look at what they're doing, it's the same messages, maybe just different words, but they are all about changing the formats, learning through breaking things down and coming back in a sort of whole part whole type philosophy, and really using teaching game for understanding and sort of game focused activity to get everybody involved. And again, I'll share the slides, but as I say, their own version of whole part whole, start the game off 4v4, create a problem, let them break it down and with an overload. Eventually you get back to equal numbers and then come back on and play the game. But just their own version really of the whole part whole, but they call it the combination method. And again, it's interesting to hear in their grassroots language, how did they assess, through formative assessment, but very simple, with all the players active, could you see that players were enjoying it and did they learn? And I guess the role of the coach is to find ways to check for that understanding in terms of learning, because we can probably see if they're busy and we can certainly see if they're enjoying it, but just those different methods to check for understanding at the end. And
that runs through all of the qualifications, Jamie, because we had a similar one for level 1, which was fun, safe, fun, engaging. But then maybe we kind of left that behind and should have potentially followed on with it through level 2 and 3.
Absolutely. I'd say it's a sense check or a check for any coach educator, any coach, isn't it? If all these things are taking place, then as a grassroots coach, are you doing your job? More than likely. Yeah. Good. And again, it's interesting going back. It just shows, our problem has been everybody's problem. This is 6 years back in Belgium. They were really highlighting the same challenges that we had, and that same attitude to really developing and evolving the game as we move forwards. Again, it's just interesting to see, from another country's perspective. But I guess, our big message as part of this, it is very much about UEFA now recognising the role of a grassroots coach. Trying to equip them with those modern philosophies and methods to engage, especially we're talking about the players. Trying to keep players for life, giving the coaches that range of tools, giving them the flexibility to really adapt and understand game-related training, and just let the players, as we know, find the player their own levels, and their own degree of level, wherever they're playing. But I think always interesting just to see that the message is consistent and not just within the UK. Absolutely. So ultimately, we hope that will start to make a difference. And every national association now has until, I think, essentially November to commit their new 4-year grassroots development plan. And a key area of that has also been around the workforce, as well as the content of the courses. So they'll all now go through that process, really. Again, the FA have gone through over the last, I'd say 14 years around upskilling and modernising the teaching workforce as well. Right. So there's a bit of a catch up around the rest of Europe.
Great, thanks, Jamie. I think we've got some questions. I think Keith's asked about 8 questions, isn't he, Libby? So should we just limit him?
No, yeah, there's some questions going back to the UEFA C, some practical ones as well. Keith says, has the UEFA taken on board reality-based learning on UEFA C?
Yeah, it's a big part of their coaches convention. So they brought it back in 2016 for the B and the A, and obviously now it's making sure that that's a consistent part of the journey for even for the leaders course. But there's a real mix between classroom and pitch activity, and the minimum of 50 or 60 yards is very much within a reality-based learning context. And again, it's interesting now hearing some of the associations say, we want to do our in situ visits, we want to go and watch them in our clubs, etc., knowing the model and the challenge and the cost that can escalate to, suddenly if you've got a few thousand learners in the system. So again, it'll be interesting to see how other countries manage that. One of the best solutions has actually been we had Finland presenting last week, and they've really invested heavily in terms of almost every community club equivalent of England will have a dedicated grassroots coach educator who will be licensed to deliver the leaders course, for instance, and the C license. So they've invested heavily in getting a licensed coach educator within every community club, so they can really manage that mentorship and in situ support just when they're working on week-to-week basis as a club coach. So they've sort of really dealt with that by putting in-house coach educators within the clubs and having more of them, but enabling that to happen. And obviously then support and some sort of community hub clubs that are attached to that club as well. But they've employed full-time people to do that, and put them within those grassroots clubs. So again, interesting model.
And also it says, when do you start to talk about vision and philosophy? Is that UEFA C or the course before?
Now, so the basic principles introduced on the leaders still, but again, it's just that level of detail. So just getting them to consider why they're there and their purpose for getting involved. But then obviously it gets extended then within the C, and then obviously the fine detail around how they play, how they train, then in the B and the A. But certainly the wider philosophy introduced now from the very first course. And again, that was absolutely brand new when you're introducing it in some of the East European countries for certain. So it's been interesting just to again see them sort of switch on to that.
Yeah. Practical one. Rich is asking, looking at the restructure, does that mean I can now go straight to UEFA B goalkeeping from level 2 goalkeeping?
Every country will have their own pathway. So UEFA have obviously a pathway where it's very linear, and each country will decide basically how they will move up. But if I was still sat here with an FA Learning hat on, we'd still be saying no. We'd be saying you have to have your outfield C and then outfield B before you then add on the goalkeeper B, because there was always a multitude of reasons why you needed some of the underpinning knowledge at that B license level before you went position specific. But again, the FA may or may not change that. It'll be their choice now as they build their pathway. But typically, it's the core generics of that license level before you then go on to the position specific. I'm sorry if that's not the answer you probably wanted.
No, same. Thank you.
Yeah. But there was some sensible thinking behind it in terms of just not shortchanging it around the education process. It wasn't just to get people to do more courses.
Great. There's a few more if you're keen for that.
Yeah, should we have a couple more, Jamie? Maybe there's a couple in the Q&A bit, Libs.
Yeah, those two I was looking at.
Yeah.
One from Gary. In your opinion, if you're allowed to say so, do you feel that the new UEFA C course will be more fit for purpose than the level 2 and the old youth award for grassroots coaches?
In many countries, absolutely. In England, I would say it's not going to make a massive difference because I think that content is there already. It's just delivered. So we're probably saying to the FA, just now sort of redefine it into these 4 pillars, or for most FAs. But I think English FA will sit already within one of these 4 pillars already. I think what it will do is make the FA think about how they prioritise the hours spent in each of the 4 pillars, and make sure it is a consistent sort of journey from. I'll be interested to see how they, almost go from an online level 1 course into a more practical based level 2 course now, with the UEFA C. But certainly for most countries, I think there will be big measures of improvement. I think for the FA, it's a bit of a tweak, a bit of a chance to review and reassess, and their challenge is to continue to be, I think, football world leading in terms of the content they're providing.
Jamie, can I, just before Libby asks other Jamie's question, is there, when you get to the UEFA C, then is there an element that can be done online? And we were chatting about how the Zoom world will continue once we're out of lockdown. Is there an element that can be done online, or is it kind of you have to do a certain percentage face to face?
Yeah, and I think of the 60 hours, there's an expectation that 50 hours are sort of guided learning hours.
Right.
But that can mean, on pitch, off pitch, online. If there's a tutor there online, obviously that will still come as guided.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see, how each country decides to deliver it effectively, for a whole country's worth of provision. And I think, for sure, the FA going down the digital route, as we know. I think there's still, there'll be lots of people with different opinions around how much of it is online and how much of it's face to face, and what does blended learning look like. And I guess we've got to wait to see what kind of experiential learning is offered before we assess, before we all give an opinion on what we think is most effective.
But look, I'm really conscious of time limits. If you ask Jamie, can you ask Jamie Godbold's question, and we'll have a quick answer, and then I'm conscious that Jamie's got a lot more to tell us.
Yeah, no, this one's a quick one. Does the assessment process differ on the courses, or is it like the old Youth Award attendance model, which was a huge hit with coaches?
The big challenge, we're encouraging every NA to go down a much more formative assessment process, and to train the workforce to be far more competent in formative assessment. And absolutely, so we want to get away from summative. We're not going to build up towards a final exam. Although it's not mandated, because there'll still be some countries that will still try to go, they like a written test, they like to put people under pressure, but actually when they submit their content to us, we are going to go back and say, if absolutely you have to have some kind of written test, we still want some evidence that you're collecting and adapting a more formative approach along the way. But there were some countries that will take 2 or 3, 4 years to get comfortable looking at formative assessment. But absolutely, we're trying to move everybody towards a much more formative way of assessment and a much more user-friendly way.
Thanks, Jamie. Thanks, Libby.
Okay, so apologies, I guess that's a quick overview around UEFA C.
We haven't left much time for the rest, have we?
No, but I mean, what I'll just tell you, I guess there's 2 other big initiatives that UEFA and FIFA are actively involved with, and I guess I'm leading on for both. So UEFA Football in Schools, as I mentioned, started last year. It's 11 million euros over 4 years. Sounds a lot, but it's not when you divide it by 55 countries. It's about 50,000 each year to each country. To some people, that's a lot of money. To the FA, it's a drop in the ocean. But what it will do is make every country have a plan for football in schools. Again, looking at increasing the number of players, improving participation, and obviously being a key part of the UEFA Grassroots Charter, which is about obviously football being available and offered within schools. It gives us again the chance to formalise school club links, to really get again members to provide dedicated education for teachers. So that may well be a version of the leaders course. It gets us to formalise partnerships around Europe with the ministries of education. And in many countries, actually, we've actually managed to get dedicated football lessons in PE curriculums, some as much and as often as 3 times a week. I think you had Paul Ashworth on from Kazakhstan the other week.
Yeah,
and
right.
Kazakhstan are actually one of the countries that are actually now basically mandating football 3 times a week in their PE lessons. And they're now training 7,000 teachers over the next 4 years to ultimately deliver about 70,000 football lessons every year within schools. So can you imagine if they get it right, potentially there's a big
Mm.
impact there in a few years' time. They've still got to change the education and make sure those teachers deliver it in an engaging way, but they're starting a journey. Moldova, Romania, a lot of these Eastern European countries have now got the mandated football lessons in schools. So again, you know, we have to be careful that some of these countries will start to, you know, have an even better chance of catching up if they can get these in, you know, get these going. But certainly, you know, it's been I guess, a strength of the UEFA funding as we've been able to sort of mandate these partnerships in many countries that haven't had them before. So effectively, UEFA have invested an awful lot of time and energy again over the last 12 months. We've sort of led on an awful lot of webinars with all 55 countries, developed a football in schools network. And you can see there the numbers, and actively been very busy during lockdown getting this up and running. Again, just some background information there, the type of work and the kind of money that's been involved, and you know how we're supporting NAs to do this. But I guess ultimately the great thing for us is now that all 55 countries have a 4-year plan entrenched in teacher education, linking schools to clubs, and really developing the environment within schools. So again, I think just a great message. And again, we talk about the wheel being reinvented, but all of a sudden football in schools is important again. And it's great that I guess someone like UEFA are endorsing that. And obviously we've had different experiences over the years around football in schools in England. And I'm sure some would say there's some real gaps there at the moment in terms of, you know, being part of a curriculum or teachers being trained. And obviously we've had different interventions that have, you know, made big impacts over the last few years that have started and stopped. But probably really should be an ongoing commitment from all of us to keep that work going on within England and the UK.
James, is that, unless I've missed something, is it primary schools and secondary, or targeted mostly at primary?
Yeah, it was left open. They could do it wherever they want. Some even went through to high school and university, and we're looking at just getting more young leaders and young coaches getting involved with the project. But predominantly it's been primary schools, mass participation.
Yeah.
And interestingly, quite a lot of countries also looking at brand new kindergarten programs. And again, not at developing, you know, typical football, you know, they're not player development, but it's just using football as the tool, creating the hook and creating a love for the game, even from kindergarten, and giving teachers the skills to introduce that within, you know, kindergartens or in infant schools in those early years, in the 3 to 5, 3 to 7. But again, not anything formal at all in England at that age group at the moment, being led by the FA.
Okay.
Again, so if we leave it too long, again, add up, you know, put in the small-sided formats, the lack of support around kindergarten in the early years, and again, there's always that danger that we don't enjoy the position that we've got now. So again, UEFA objectives, fairly straightforward. So in terms of increasing numbers, using football as a tool, and really creating school links. I want to share with you the challenges because I think, again, they're very similar, being how you link education with the NA, how you qualify teachers, how you attract non-playing football, you know, the typical sort of people who don't engage to get engaged at young age, how you create that school to club link pathway, how you meet inclusivity. And actually, in some countries, it's actually how you develop a new club network, because actually outside of school, there was nowhere for them to go unless they're an elite player. So there's a massive gap in some of these areas. But it just highlights, again, still the changing sort of landscape of football in schools across Europe, and that chance to really improve what we have. And again, you'll be aware, I'm sure, as a group on the call, the many different benefits of football as an educational tool when we're talking about engaging more schools. And some of those basic principles behind it.
I'd be interested. Sorry. Yeah, I'd be interested. I don't want to ask a question, it's just an observation. I'm conscious of your time. I'd be interested to see how that develops in this country, because like you say, Jamie, when I was growing up, school football was big. And over the years, it's just gradually been forgotten, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. And the FA, their schools program is still very much just aimed on a girl specific, a sort of smaller interaction or intervention around girl specific, which is obviously a space that they're heavily involved with at the moment with the Wildcats, etc.
Yeah.
But again, you know, the FA is a lead. You know, are they now leading football in schools? Really investing in that? You know, possibly not. And again, just some of those reasons why UEFA are doing it. But again, all the things that we know have worked over the years. It's just interesting to see that cycle and the wheels in motion when we talk about the European landscape. Really recognising the importance of investing in football in schools as one of the core tools to keep growing the game. So I guess as coaches, as grassroots, for everyone here who's sat in a grassroots club, you just question, what are those links like with the local schools? Are they as strong as they can be? Can you do more around teacher education or bringing your club closer to the schools that you work with as a challenge? And on top of that, touched on at the start, I was really fortunate 3 years ago to end up heading up a football in schools project for FIFA. And that ultimately meant that we traveled the world, filmed in 7 different, all 6 confederations around different facilities with different types of kids to basically put together 120 curriculum lessons that all had 3 different segments. So 360 short videos to basically form all of the content for brand new FIFA for Schools app. And I'll just put on a couple of short videos which give you a flavour of what's coming as that now gets launched over the next few months.
Yeah, great.
So I'll just show you a couple here. So here's the first one, which just gives an overview of what it looks like.
Football is more than just a game. As FIFA, we need to take our responsibilities, not only when it comes to the game itself, but also to our social role.
Le football m'a appris beaucoup de choses.
La solidarité, la générosité, le respect.
In the school, you have the first contact with the kids, and you have the opportunity to give them a good guide in the development.
We will present a football program which is part of the school curriculums of primary schools and secondary schools. The important element is not football skills, but life skills, taught through football.
Schools have a fundamental part in introducing a beautiful game that provides children with so many other aspects of human development.
We will send 11 million balls all around the world in this fantastic Football for Schools project.
The importance of football in schools is an immersion to the greatest sport on the planet.
Football, c'est une école de la vie.
So I guess you'll see there again a flavour of the Football for Schools app from FIFA, and you can see why I enjoy my job so much.
I was about to say about that was a bind going around filming all those. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a
great.
very it's just a lovely opportunity, but it's just interesting, isn't it, that at a time when maybe football in schools isn't a key focus, necessarily in this country, that UEFA and FIFA are both spending, the FIFA project there over $100 million over 4 years. 11 million footballs in a teacher education all around the world. It just reminds us of the impact of the game at grassroots, and actually the core business is introducing it in schools because that's that first opportunity to make the best possible difference. just great to see, I think, from a FIFA and UEFA point of view, that they're putting such a high priority on it. Yeah, and be really fascinated to see when we get launched. It should be April, a soft launch, and then depending on what happens with the pandemic, a proper launch as soon as it's possible, and to get maximum sort of leverage. But at some point this year, that'll come out, and we'll be out there in the big wide world for everybody to download. Brilliant. So looking forward to it.
That's great work. Well done, mate. Brilliant. I think we're running out of time, Libby, haven't we?
We have.
Oh.
I'm sure we could have heard a lot more.
That was a great insight, Jamie. Thanks ever so much. Sorry you couldn't be on with Roberto Martinez tonight, but like I said, Libby Piggott's the next best thing.
There you go.
Absolutely, yeah. No, real pleasure. Apologies, I tried to squeeze too much in and maybe rushed a little.
No, it was me. I should have stopped asking questions. I'll get in trouble later. I'll get text later saying stop asking so many questions.
No,
so thanks ever so much, Jamie. I really appreciate it.
No, my pleasure. Great to join you all. Thank you.
Good stuff, guys. Thanks for coming again. We'll send out the link for the recording. And are we allowed to have that PowerPoint, Jamie, or not?
I think most of it you can. I'll tidy it up and I'll let you have it, I'm sure. Yeah.
But definitely the recording, guys. And so make sure you click that link straight away so you can download it, because otherwise it expires and you can't have it after like 7 days. So click it straight away and then it's all yours. And we'll see you on the next webinar, which is Thursday.
Thanks, Libby. Thanks, Jamie.
See you soon, guys.
See you guys. Thank you.
See everyone. Bye.